Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
In the name of God, the most merciful, the most compassionate, Mr. President of the General Assembly, Mr. Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen, may God's peace, mercy, and blessings be upon you. The 79th session of the United Nations General Assembly comes in the midst of dangerous circumstances in the Middle East and the world, in which the global international order faces a difficult test that threatens its existence and renders it incapable of achieving the goals for which it was founded. These goals include the maintenance of international security and stability and human rights. Today, we are witnessing precedents in which all international charters and norms are being violated. The international institutions that are supposed to contribute to managing and organizing international relations in a way that enhances peace and stability and advances human relations away from violence and brutal treatment are being neutralized. Important principles such as sovereignty, territorial integrity, multilateral cooperation, the laws of war, humanitarian laws, and the international humanitarian law, and the responsibility to protect and the right to self-determination have all been ignored. The world is being pushed towards full-scale confrontations and conflicts, while the UN Security Council is powerless and without a role. In the absence of this responsibility, alternative mechanisms may be resorted to, and ignoring these institutions threatens to revert international relations to chaos. At the same time, we must not forget to commend some of the courageous positions of some of the figures heading these UN institutions, including the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres. However, we clearly see, despite great efforts, that there is a lack of effective influence. Putting an end to the violations taking place in Palestine and the region is the responsibility of everyone, particularly the Security Council, which has failed to achieve its most important objective, which is maintaining international peace and security. In occupied Palestine today, we are witnessing a people who are being attacked by an occupying military force, displacing millions without being deterred and killing thousands. There is public talk of mass starvation to exterminate these people, and of the use of nuclear weapons to eliminate them by senior officials of the occupying entity without any measures to deter them. The International Committee, nor any of its members, has committed to the responsibility to protect them as mandated in international law. The Palestinian people have been denied the right to live in dignity in a state like all other peoples amid a shameful global paralysis. Rather, criminals are being empowered to persist in, exaggerate, and expand the conflict and attack others by supporting them and ensuring their repeated impunity. We have also witnessed more recklessness that has made international law and Security Council resolutions mere ink on paper in a series of aggressions against the countries of the region and the occupation and annexation of territories and the changing of international borders by force against the resolutions of the Security Council. These are dangerous precedents that threaten the entire international system and undermine the foundations of international institutions, resulting in dire consequences for all of humanity. In furtherance of extremism, the occupation invokes Security Council Resolution 1701 as a pretext for aggression against Lebanon. It selectively chooses this resolution and some of its provisions, while ignoring the numerous resolutions and the indisputable principles of international law adopted by the Security Council, including resolutions 242, 246, 252, 265, and 297. We are witnessing a brutal campaign of indiscriminate killing and the use of technology to carry out bombings remotely without regard for unarmed civilians, in a dangerous precedent that indicates the extent of the involvement of the occupation's government and its indulgence in committing crimes against humanity. Iraq, today, through its government and its people, and under the directives of the Supreme Religious Authority, stands with Lebanon and its brotherly people as it faces a new page of brutal aggression that seeks to plunge the region into conflict, which is something we have already warned against. We will continue to provide all possible assistance to overcome the effects of these attacks. Our position is based on a history of cohesion and a well-known Iraqi steadfastness that rejects aggression and occupation and rejects depriving people's right to their land, heritage, and holy sites, and that repeatedly condemns any international support or justification for the aggressor's pretexts. We also note the systematic targeting of international agencies and relief organizations in the occupied territories, and the audacity to harm their personnel, including United Nations agencies and including the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, UNRWA, in Gaza, which is supposed to be protected under international law. I would like to recall that these abuses not only disrupt humanitarian action, but also violate international norms, protecting civilians and those providing assistance in conflict zones. These recent moves by the occupation seek to threaten the stability of the countries of the region by igniting a large-scale regional war. Iraq, as a founding member of the United Nations, hopes that this institution will achieve the objectives for which it was founded in maintaining peace and security and sparing the world the dangers of wars and tragedies that it has experienced throughout history. Allow us to express our disappointment at the failure of the Security Council and the international system to fulfill its obligations. Ladies and gentlemen, we note a significant increase in hate crimes and intolerance that affect our security and stability. We are in dire need of international cooperation in order to spread the spirit of tolerance and mutual respect, and to combat hate speech, discrimination, and violence that are steadily increasing around the world. We believe that one of the main aspects of hate speech is the growing phenomenon of Islamophobia, which undermines global efforts to achieve peace, security, and coexistence, and creates an atmosphere for attacks targeting our social and moral values, which are part of our human existence. Therefore, I call on the United Nations to make greater efforts to promote dialogue and understanding among different cultures and religions. And I stress the need to promote unity and harmony in the face of increasing polarization, while stressing the need for heads of state and heads of international institutions to stand against religious intolerance and hatred. Excellencies, as for Iraq, and in contrast to what I have mentioned, there are good developments, as the country where ISIS occupied a third of the territory, and where many observers believed that it was the end of Iraq as we know it. Today, 10 years later, Iraq is witnessing the implementation of a comprehensive plan for reconstruction and development, and the restoration of life to cities, and the rise of tall buildings and infrastructure and safety, and the spread of safety. We still have many fundamental challenges ahead of us in achieving economic, administrative, and environmental reforms and diversifying the economy. We have made great strides in achieving security. We have achieved a victory over terrorism, and soon we will crown this victory over this terrorist organization with a joint and important declaration with our allies and friends who stood by Iraq and supported it against a brutal enemy that posed a threat to the entire world. Our efforts are focused on strengthening the democratic process in Iraq and working to consolidate the social contract and national cohesion as chosen by our people in their permanent constitution of 2005. We have organized provincial council elections, which had been suspended for 10 years. And after their organization was obstructed in Kirkuk since 2005. Now we are in the process of organization elections for the parliament of the Kurdistan region of Iraq. Our efforts are continuing to strengthen the relationship of the federal government with the regional governments and local governments in the governorates in accordance with what the constitution and the law have determined, and to protect the existence of minorities and sects and to secure their needs. One of our priorities is to spread justice and preserve diversity, which we consider as one of our most important assets. Ladies and gentlemen, this government has 5 priorities: job creation, diversifying sources of income, reforming the banking and financial sector, and managing the energy transition, and addressing the causes of social, economic, and therefore political unrest. This transformation is a complicated matter for Iraq, due to the economic structural challenge represented by relying on the public sector to take in the workforce and to use oil revenues to pay the salaries of millions of employees. This dual challenge facing Iraq is the excessive dependence on oil revenues and limiting its ability to diversify economically. This has been as a result of decades of wars and economic blockade, and the dictatorial regimes' absurd economic policies, and some aspects of miscalculation and mismanagement later on, and the waste in human and material resources that could have been developed. Governance, anti-corruption, digital transformation, and e-government are all among our top priorities, as they are the most important strategies to reduce corruption and achieve good governance. But we expect the international community to support our efforts to recover the looted assets that are Iraq's right, and to end the legal and legislative obstacles placed by some countries in order to provide a safe haven for corruption-related funds, such as banking secrecy and preventing the disclosure of beneficial owners to help evade accountability. Ladies and gentlemen, Iraq seeks to achieve regional security and stability by finding ways for constructive partnerships to face common challenges through cooperation between the participating parties and increasing mutual interdependence in a way that is in the interest of all. And we plan to launch initiatives that reflect economic integration and regional stability in the region, particularly the Development Road Project, which aims to transform Iraq into a major regional hub for trade and transportation, and to link the Middle East with Europe through Iraq, using a network of railways, highways, and industrial cities, and linking the large port of Fao in southern Iraq to Europe via the countries in the region. This project represents the most important steps to enhance regional cooperation and integration, and is in line with Iraq's broader goals of rebuilding the economy and improving services. Ladies and gentlemen, Iraq faces serious environmental challenges as a result of climate change and desertification, challenges that cannot be addressed without enhanced international cooperation, as desertification and the lack of vegetation cover leads to the displacement of millions in search of stability, thus exacerbating social and political crises. We call for international solidarity to face environmental challenges and to work to raise awareness of the importance of the management of sustainable water resources, which is a central issue for Iraq. This challenge requires a commitment to the principle of shared and just responsibilities among states, as we face existential challenges related to an acute shortage of water resources, which threatens agriculture and negatively affects the economy and threatens the lives of millions of Iraqis. Hence, the government attaches top priority to these files and issues and works in cooperation with neighboring countries to reach sustainable solutions and policies to deal with these influences. In conclusion, I would like to express my deep gratitude to the United Nations for the support it has provided to Iraq over the past 2 decades. We look forward to a new phase of cooperation with the United Nations in Iraq that will begin by the end of 2025. And we hope that this will mark the beginning of a new era full of stability and prosperity for our people, and a new page of partnership with the United Nations. We are working hard to build a better future for our coming generations, and we look forward to continuing partnership with the international community to achieve this. Selecting Iraq to chair the Group of 77 and China for 2025 is a victory for Iraqi diplomacy, which seeks to achieve development goals and bridge the technological gap between the countries of the North and the countries of the South, and achieve integration and reform of the international economic system. While chairing the largest international group of 134 nations, we look forward to working towards a more stable and just world in which all peoples of the world interact and have development opportunities. In conclusion, our policy puts Iraq, its people, security, sovereignty, and prosperity first. We proceed with confidence to erase the traces of the past, including wars, dictatorships, and terrorism, just as we continue to rebuild Iraq and give it the regional and international status it well deserves. May the peace, mercy, and blessings of God be upon you.